This is Cohesion Connect with your host, Michelle Ricketts, and special guest, Martin Ricketts, the digital samurai.
Today the twins are sharing tools, tips, and techniques for developing intellectual property and building a self-sufficient standalone business. And now, here's Michelle.
Hello, I'm Michelle Ricketts and welcome to Cohesion Connect. I'm here with my special guest and twin brother, Martin Ricketts. Hey, Martin.
Hey, Michelle. Great to be here.
Great to have you with me today. Today is going to be interesting because we've got a new format we're looking at on a monthly basis, and we're calling that Cohesion Collaborative Conversations. So we're going to talk about timely topics, and we may even invite guests, Martin. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea. I love guests, especially when they're me.
Me too. So let us know if there's something you'd like us to talk about, or if there's somebody you'd like to have on as a guest, or if you'd like to be a guest with us. So today's conversation is all about the future of work. Work has changed over the last few years, and we're going to be discussing how the generations see work differently. We're going to discuss how they see work from their perspective and how the democratization of technology has changed the game. Why transactional thinking is a short-term solution to build your IP. So we're going to talk about all of those areas, Martin. And how do you see, what's your perspective on this paradigm shift?
Well, that's a really good point, Michelle. There has been a paradigm shift, and now it's all about the user. It's about the person. And so businesses have to realize that you can't just operate the same way that you operated before. Facts on the ground are very clear. There's a fundamental shift in the way we work, not just that we're working from home and that kind of stuff, but it's what is now considered acceptable for work. When I was first starting out, when I was in my early 20s, I worked from home. But I didn't tell anyone that, because if you told someone that, Michelle, they wouldn't take you seriously. They'd think you were in a serious business. That is no longer the case. So it's not just that the work has changed and it's hybrid and all of that. It's also that now it's okay to work from your house and be still considered a successful business. They've decoupled that notion that you're not a successful business unless you have an office. In fact, it's quite the opposite now.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think, Martin, the key around that as well is people who work from home or work remotely are thinking more now about what does their work environment that people see, what does that look like? Because when we started, a lot of people, they were in the bedroom and they had the unmade bed behind them, or you've seen all the videos with people doing things that they shouldn't be on camera. So it's really being aware of what your work environment looks like. And that helps with that professionalism and being accepted as an actual business working remotely.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Michelle. It's accepted to work from home, but you don't want to have behind you, your open closet with clothes all over the place, because that says a lot about you. So that's why I have, my stuff like that.
Exactly. So when you say the democratization of technology, Martin, what's your take on that?
Well, really, it's a good news, bad news story, Michelle. The good news is there's infinite supply now. Infinite tools, infinite knowledge. You can ask anything and you'll get an answer. And now, especially with AI, you can get an answer based on conversation. But the bad news is there's infinite supply, infinite tools, and infinite knowledge. In the sea of infinite supply, it's more difficult than ever to stick out. So the game has changed. It's no longer that the gatekeepers, all the big media companies and everything hold you back. Anyone is a media company now. In fact, everyone is a media company, Michelle. So it's all about how you stick out, and brand is how you do that, building your brand.
And I think that's one of your famous quotes from Gary Vee. Everyone is a media company now, and that is so true. So building your brand, sticking out, what does that all start to look like?
Well, there's a generational shift here as well, Michelle. And Gen X and baby boomers, they were used to the Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Now, I never did that because I was an entrepreneur since when I was a teenager. So I just set my own schedule the way I did. But that's the way most people do it. That was the industrial age, and that's the way schools taught you as well. In the rows of desks, everyone doing the same thing at the same time. That has really changed. Gen Zers don't look at it this way, 20-somethings, and millennials too, but they prefer a less structured and more organic process. And they really don't like the Monday to Friday thing, the line between work and play. They want to be creators, influencers, YouTubers, gamers, coaches. A lot of people, dismiss that, but really what it's saying is they want to do the thing that they love. They want to do work in that way and not have a structured work environment. What's interesting about that, Michelle, is that to do that, you need to have structure, and we're going to talk about that. And don't get those two things mixed up. You can't have the freedom of schedule without having structure and organization in your business.
Mm-hmm. It becomes like herding cats if you're doing it that way. So, Martin, I actually did the 9 to 5 for over 35 years. I was in corporate, and that's what it was all about. And there was a lot of structure there. And that model isn't dead, but it's not, as you said, the new generations, younger generations are moving away from that and looking at how they want their work to be. So it's not a 9 to 5, and it's not even a job per se. It's work that you love. So even for myself, yes, I was employed, it was a job, but I saw it as work and the work that I enjoyed. And that's what Gen Zers, the millennials, that generations are all in. It's because they are 50% of the workforce, and that's going to continue to grow. They will set that new standard, and that standard will be what they want, opposed to what's been dictated in the past.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Michelle. They are 50. Gen Z and millennials are 50% of the workforce in North America. In other parts of the world, like Africa, it's much higher. There's a younger demographic. In Japan and South Korea, it's the other way around, but that's a whole nother thing. But here's the thing. The term job has only come into the common vernacular about 250 years. We didn't talk about jobs before. We talked about work. Work's been with us for 2 million years, since we were hunters and gatherers in Africa. So the future of work is not necessarily the future of jobs, because work is the thing that you do that you love, and a job may be something separately. So it's really useful to look at it that way. And the older generation thinks more about it like job, and the newer generation thinks about it more like work. And work is whatever I'm loving to do whenever I'm doing it with this more organic type of process, Michelle. And it's possible.
And sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's possible to fashion a life doing virtually any work you want. Here's the thing. I think a lot of people don't understand this really profound point, which is now you can do hyper-targeted jobs. 2 great examples of that is AI prompt engineering. That's a new one. Asking the AI the best question. There's courses out there, people are making 6 figures doing that now, and that job did not exist a year ago. There'll be a lot of jobs like that. Finding B-roll is another very specific job. In fact, we have our people that do that. In fact, it's even more specific than that. There's people that I work with. They're really good, and B-roll is the video you put on, when you're not on the screen. If we cut to now someone working or doing something, that would be B-roll. Instead of me, it's A-roll is me, B-roll is the other one. And finding the best of that is going to be a really in-demand skill these days. In fact, you could be just the best at finding B-roll that's animals and nature pictures, and you could make a living doing that. So this hyper-targeting of jobs, coupled with the fact that anyone can be a media company. You can have someone in the poorest person in Africa in this tiny little fishing village could be an influencer. And I know this because we have the poorest person in Africa in the tiny little fishing village as one of our outsourcers. So it's really important to see that this change is foundational. It's not just as, like it was before. It's a foundational change that now you can do work that you want, and it can be anyone in the world that can do it, Michelle.
Yes, and I was just talking to somebody yesterday that literally outsourced somebody finding images for them for a client, and that's all that person does. And so you're right; they can be anywhere in the world and really be part of this, and really be an influencer, have work that they enjoy. Martin, though, the challenge is for most people is to integrate their work and their play. Now, a lot of people speak to balance, and I don't call it balance because balance in life is almost impossible. It depends on what you think is balance. So I like to say integrating Mr. Beast and even you, Martin, you integrate everything you do, your work and your play, they become one. I mean, Mr. Beast was talking about the fact he works hours and hours and hours and he loves it and he tried not to, you were telling me, and it didn't go well
Yeah,
for
that's
him.
right. That's right. It's the same with me. Like I work until I don't feel like working. And I was watching another person talk about the same thing. And it might be yesterday. It was 12 hours, right? But it's not about the balance thing, as you say, Michelle. It's about what motivates you, what drives you, and finding that. And then if you're doing that, then yeah, it doesn't seem like work.
Yeah. And really, that is, even though, millennials and some of the younger generation talk about they don't want structure, but that really is structure. It's just, I like to say, unstructured structure, because you're doing work till you don't feel like working. Then you're going to go out with friends and have dinner. Then you might come back and you do some work. That's a structure, but it's not that 9 to 5 structure. For me, it's my day is still scheduled and structured. I do my workout in the morning. I get on my computer about 10, but before I get on my computer, I may do something on my phone, and I may go play tennis in the evening. It's a structure, but it's a flow, and I'm integrating my life and my work. And that's really what it's about. Now, I know one of the things we talked about too, Martin, you do a little differently. My phone doesn't come into my bedroom. I use a regular alarm clock. It sits on my night table. But your approach to that is different, and it's a different structure. You use your phone. Your phone, I think it's attached at your hip.
Yeah, that is. Well, this is attached. This is also, I got a smartwatch. So yes, I'm very engaged in that way because I want to have this organic ability to capture information and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, you can work different ways with technology, to be sure.
So with this new paradigm shift, a rethink is required. So what's that? What does that rethink look like a little bit more in depth?
Yeah, that's a really important point, Michelle, because the typical content production and outsourcing model really doesn't work for this new paradigm. How many businesses sell services? Lots do. And many of them sell on features. And feature, benefit, feature, yeah, so it's not just that, but it's feature, 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 benefit, benefit, benefit. It has 50,000 fonts and 10,000 backgrounds and da-da-da-da, and it does this and does that. From a marketing standpoint, that's easy and it's kind of lazy because that's not what really people want. They think they do often, so they'll buy that. But what people really want is curated solutions, curated experiences, curated services. And by that I mean they want you to pick out the best tool, you to pick out the best backgrounds. Here's the best 10 backgrounds that you have from our set of a million. And that's where some of those targeted jobs I talked about come in. But it's really a different way of selling, and they want you to do the work for them. Steve Jobs has a great thought on this as well, which is they want you to pick the best products. He talked about a lot of companies have a product and say, okay, how can we market this to people? And what Steve Jobs said is you want to look at what the customer need is, that's the curated solution, and then design a product or service back to exactly what they need. And that's what Apple does, and one of the reasons that they're so successful, and that's exactly what my company does, Digital Samurai. We did that exactly the same thing. And it means that there's things you just don't do because they don't fit into your curated solution, right? And maybe you want to sell this, but that isn't something that the client needs. If you're looking at it from what the client needs first, it's going to change the services and products that you offer. And that's a really important thing to remember.
And I think, Martin, a lot of that too, the client often doesn't realize that they don't want to do that. And I think
yeah,
that's the key point is
that's
people
right.
think, yeah, I want to do all my social media. Yes, I want to do everything here. Yes, I want to do all my templates and yada, yada, yada. They think they do, but when they have someone that actually shows them that, no, we can do this for you and you don't have to do it, we need your input, then they realize, yeah, that's actually what I want. So that's got to be a rethink as well.
Yeah, and the other part to that, Michelle, is that a lot of people are micromanagers. And so they're really good over here. They're a real estate agent and they're great. But then they're micromanaging over here, telling which fonts they want to use and the particular shade of chartreuse that they like on their background. You shouldn't be making those decisions on a regular basis as an owner, okay? It's not that important, first of all. That is not what brand is. You can go look at Joe Polish's work to talk about that. Your brand isn't your font and your this and your that. That's not what your brand is. As Jeff Bezos says, your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And it's your reputation, right? And people get too caught up in the minutia of the production stuff, and that's not what they should be thinking about. Now, Michelle, on this new model, which is not the standardized ticket, here's a ticket, you go out to the platform and you put up your job. This new organic production model that is required in this area is very different. It's a guide on the ride, journey-based learning model. It's teaching to the problem, not to the tool. I learned that from Elon Musk. But the way we do it is, if you need a Facebook banner, let's say, we're not going to show you how to use PowerPoint slides or Canva and then how to do the color pick. We're not going to show you that. We're just going to go in, okay, you need a banner. What do we need? Okay, here's a template for a Facebook banner. Here's your colors. Let's put that in there. What do you think? We should put a mountain in the front of this, right? So we're going to talk to you about what it should look like, not teach you how to use the stuff. So we're going to do the thing, not teach you how to do the thing. And that's a really different approach. And that's what's required in this new world order where you have this organic process that young people want.
And that's such a differentiator, Martin, because a lot of people, if you use the Lamborghini as an example, I don't need to know how the Lamborghini works. I just want to get in and drive, right? And it's that type of thing to be able to show them and give that take away that responsibility from you having to do everything and the business owner having to make all the decisions and making some for them, some ahead of time. So you've got the profile and you know their brands and all of that, but the brand colors, but you also then work with them to get things established. And that's a key differentiator.
That's right, Michelle. And in this model, this organic model, as opposed to this transactional structured fill in a ticket model, in this organic model, content comes in 24/7. You're at a party and you happen to see an influencer there. You talk to them, right? Now that's another difference between the generations. Often the older generation sees that as an imposition. I'm not working now, I'm at a party. Whereas the younger generation, it's an opportunity to capture something cool that I can make some content out of. And especially if you're a business person and an entrepreneur, you should be thinking in that way no matter how old you are. I certainly do. I had to train myself to do it. It didn't come naturally to me necessarily. But now I do. I'm walking down the street or I'm going somewhere and I say, well, that's an opportunity for a post. That's an opportunity for some content that can teach a lesson to whatever it might be. There was a strike at the grocery store the other day, so I did a piece about striking, about unions and do we need unions? And it got a lot of negative comments, which is great. Got a lot of engagement. But again, it's this organic 24/7 type of process. You need a production model that works with that, and the standardized model doesn't.
And I think you touched on a key point there, Martin. For some of us that are not millennials, it's a learned process. I'm still getting better at it and saying, oh, wait, I could, take my phone out and do something there. Or that makes sense, that I could use that for a post. But it is a learned skill that we develop. It's not something for those of us that aren't millennials and over 30. It's a learned skill.
Yeah, that's right. And you don't necessarily have to be on camera. There's all kinds of AI tools that we can use for this. But technology, especially with artificial intelligence, is driving the cost of production to zero. So if you are in the business of transactional production, I'm doing this video, it's $1,000. I'm doing this, $1,000. I would beware. And if you're not using AI tools already in your production to augment that, so then instead of charging $1,000, you can charge $500, beware. Technology is driving the cost of production to zero. So you need to do a different model. A better model is a revenue share model, which says, okay, Mr. Client, we're going to do whatever we need to do for you, a landing page or this or that, the other thing, print, whatever. And then we're going to take a piece of the upside, the revenue share. We're going to expand your average revenue per client. We do that with training, interactive targeted training, but however you do it. And then we're going to take a piece of revenue out the back end. It's a better model from the standpoint you make more money than that way. The client does it better. And again, as the cost of production goes to zero, really the value is in creating sales for the client and taking a piece of that on an ongoing basis. So the long term, it's a better strategy, and it hedges against this issue of the production cost not being worth anything.
I love that, Martin, because a lot of times if you're doing a referral fee or a percentage of, the business owner just looks at that as losing sales. In this model, when you're doing the revenue share, it's not about changing what you're getting to your bottom line. It's about adding that additional opportunity for both the owner and the outsourced work to make money. And I love that model.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this paradigm shift requires a different model. It's organic, original content production model that requires the technology and production to be invisible. And so, how do you do that? Well, everyone is a media company, so you need to be creating content because that's the way you build your brand, that's the way you market. And so you need a videographer, an editor, and a message and offer person. You need a copyrighted person, a social media manager, production manager, and maybe others, assistants to them. Now, you don't have to hire all those people, but you certainly have to have somebody that does those jobs. And if somebody's not doing all those jobs, and that is often the case with some people say, I need a website. Well, what about your strategy for that? What about the copy for the website? What about your target audience? Those things are infinitely more important than the website. And it can cost you as much as $50,000 a month to get people like that. But unfortunately, you have to compete at the level that you're at, and you need to have access to those people. Now, there's ways around that. Digital Samurai has created a team replacement program. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the fact is, you need production, and therefore you need to source out all of those different jobs that I just mentioned, Michelle.
Yeah, and that is so key. And what we're going to look at actually is 10 key action steps you can take to be successful in this new world order. So let's start. We're going to look at fixing technology chaos. And Martin, a lot of times we say that and people go, technology chaos. It's navigating in today's digital landscape. You're going to face many challenges, and some of those are what we call technology chaos. So what is that?
Well, yeah, that's right. I get to look at what the hell are you talking about. Look, technology chaos is any friction between you and your data, you and your team. I can't find that file. The link didn't work. The video isn't playing. All of that stuff, that's technology chaos. And we fix that. People waste a staggering amount of time doing this. The stats say people waste up to 25% of their time looking for things or redoing them. And executives up to 150 hours a year. So it's a very costly thing. If you don't fix this, your objective should be to create a seamless system for you to capture information coming into your digital world, archive it, be able to retrieve it effortlessly so that you can turn that into content that you can deploy. That's the process. And it's an ongoing process. It should be coming in on an ongoing basis. It's coming in, it's going through the process, it's being deploying. And you want to have the least amount of interaction with that process as possible so that you can focus on the message, the offer, the value that you bring. And to do that, you really need to have this type of production system that we're talking about, Michelle.
And technology chaos, solving that technology chaos and searching for things. The other side of that, and the part a bit where I come in when I'm working with clients as well, is showing them how to access it seamlessly as well, and not being on a online and doing a webinar or something, and you're where's this? I can't find this. Opening this, so you're fixing that chaos and removing all of that. So I love it. The next thing is, when you're looking at what you're doing with clients, you want to have a strategy and approach to how you're doing things. So what does that look like?
Well, it's the same sort of organic approach that you don't want to have a whole bunch of offerings. You want to curate a solution. And you want to curate a solution that evolves over time. I talked about you're going to do what the client needs. The client needs will change. Maybe their target audience changes. So this iterative process where you're doing things with the client and over time and then measure, evaluate, and optimizing, that's the way that you want to deliver it. And in fact, strategy and the approach to strategy is one of the first things you should be talking about, not I need a website.
That makes so much sense, because you've got to have that strategy in place before you have a website or landing page or whatever it is, because you don't know what you're doing with it, right? That's not gonna show somebody on those tools what you're doing for them and how you're approaching that. So I love that.
Yeah,
the
Michelle,
next thing
one more point on that is the shift. You want to shift from a transactional way of doing business to a relational way, and that is why we make the money on the back end. We recommend that because that's relational based. You're making over time because now your needs or your objectives are in line with the client's objectives, which is to generate revenue and profit so that both of us make more money. Whereas the transactional one, it's like the video cost $1,000. There you go. I'm done. It didn't work. Oh, well, that's basically the way it works with the transactional. Whereas when you're looking at it from a relational standpoint, strategically speaking, you're both on the same page, you and the client.
Yes, and a relationship approach in your strategy is so key because it's not about here, buy this, here, buy this, here, buy this. And as you said, when somebody does buy as well, it's that after. The buying decision is made on emotion for the most part. And so if you're not developing that relationship and getting to know what they feel, what your client likes, where they are, then you're not developing that relationship to be able to have an emotional effect on them and have them buy. So I love that, Martin, as well. The next thing we were looking at is the audience. So who is your audience? Who's your ideal client? You need to define their demographic, where they are, what they do, their psychographics, how they think. You need to define that to really understand your target audience. What's your take on that, Martin?
Well, Michelle, one of the best digital marketers I know in the world, Ken Fruity, hi Ken, the funnel firm, he says this: if you want the biggest impact of success, you have to know as much about your first strike strategy as you can. You have to spend sufficient time clarifying and identifying the string of very specific variables about the target audience. Ken calls this process the tip of the spear. And it's arguably, he says, the most important thing that you can do in digital marketing. And it's particularly important before you write the check. So again, I keep going back to this, I need a website thing. It's the worst idea, or I need a video. You don't. You need to do all this stuff first. And the tip of the spear thing is super important. You should spend an inordinate amount of time figuring that out. And everyone knows, yeah, you have to do your target audience, but it's much more than that. And the only way you can do that, in some cases, is to put out the content and see how people respond to it. And that tells you stuff about that. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about that a lot, that process. You can look up some of his work to talk about that. But it's super important that you understand the client in every way possible. And that's what that process is about, Michelle.
Yes, that very true. Understanding the client and all aspects so you can tailor your message, your product, your service to what they need, even if they don't know they need it, which a lot of times they don't. So one next area is something I really love. It's a structure and process. So it's ensuring that you have set up. So you want to make sure that you have an efficient process, whether it's a product or a service that your team can then execute. And it shouldn't be you executing everything. Part of being a successful leader, a successful business owner, is being able to delegate, to outsource. But without having your defined processes and systems, your SOPs, your if you want to call them as well, you need to have those in place, your standard operating procedures, so that others can do tasks. And in some cases, it's crossover. COVID saw a lot of people not being able to come in, people were getting ill, and then didn't always have systems and processes documented to say, okay, somebody else can do this, somebody else can take that over. You want to make sure that you have that flexibility in your business to be able to both collaborate, to execute, and to be productive. And also allowing that with remote work or hybrid work, which is so key today.
Yeah, that's right, Michelle. You know, I'm big on standardization and standards. In martial arts, there's all kind of structure and standards like that. In fact, there's a process called shu ha ri, which means keep or obey, do it this way, break out and leave. So first you do it exactly the way that the sensei says. We do the same thing. We have a standardized set of tools and tactics that we use. And standards and systems, you want to standardize as many things as possible and automate as many things as possible. I use the example of the U.S. Army. The U.S. Army is able to control complex systems across vast geographic areas with teenagers, no less, because they have highly structured systems and processes. When you're flying in the B-2 bomber, there's two pilots. One pilot says, "You have the plane." The other one says, "I have the plane." Why do they do that? They're right beside each other. Because the consequences of misunderstanding who's in control are catastrophic, so they do that. We do similar things like that. The consequences aren't the same as they are in the military, but nevertheless, standardization, the oil industry standardized, which means that everyone uses the same, fittings and all that. The nuclear industry did not, which is why one of the reasons it costs so much to do nuclear power plants. So standardizing your tools and tactics allows you then to forget about them. And now you can focus on the things that you use those tools for. And that's a really, really important part. You want to take the friction out of all of your systems. And that is an ongoing process. We have what we call our prime directives, the rules that govern everything we do. And the fifth one is the most efficient and elegant solutions emerge when there's nothing left to remove. It's a constant process of taking out all of the things that shouldn't be there. I heard Elon Musk say something the other day. It was profound to me. You should never optimize something that doesn't exist or shouldn't exist. Never optimize something that shouldn't exist. It's why we don't use email, but that we'll go through another time. But yes, you're constantly refining the process and taking things out that are inefficient and shouldn't be there in the first place. And that is how you get to efficiently be able to forget about the production and the technology.
That makes so much sense, Martin. And I love that prime directive number 5, the most efficient and elegant solutions emerge. I love it. And you've talked about tools and tactics a lot. So let's touch on those specifically, because tools are valuable, but the right tactic is essential, right? And it's effectively leveraging the right tools for your desired outcome. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, Michelle, I talked about this a lot. Tactics are infinitely more important than tools. We have very specific tools that we use in very specific ways. Some people say, oh, I use that tool. Yeah, you don't use it this way. Or I like using this because of that. We use tools that work as a team, where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That is far more important than any individual tool. And it's not about using the latest tool. It's about deploying them to maximum effect. How does each tool fit into the broader system? That's what's important.
That makes so much sense, and how it fits into the broader system. I love that. Now, being able to fit into that, you have to have a plan, and that's our tool number 6 is the plan. So if you have to have a specific execution, similar to what we talked about strategy. You've got to have that strategy, but now you've got to have a plan to execute and ensure that everything is set up, your tasks, your projects, etc., empowering your team to make sure you're executing to achieve that end result and measure the results. So,
yeah, that's right, Michelle. In fact, one of the things you have to start with is you have to understand your unique value proposition. And people, oh yeah, I do this. Well, I've learned from doing this with people. They don't necessarily understand, right? I thought I was explaining our core value proposition, but the person just said, no, yeah, well, no, we do that too. Remind me of that song, you'd say tomato and I say tomato. If you read that song, it's like you say tomato, I say tomato, tomato, tomato. I don't see what's wrong here. That's what happened to me. So I thought I was saying the differentiator, but I wasn't. So you really need to spend a lot of time figuring out what your core differentiator is. And a plan is not a strategy, and a strategy is not a plan. So you do need both. You need what you're going to do and how you're going to execute on it, and that's both of those things together. It's about video shorts. What is the broader market? What is the trending strategies right now, which is video shorts and audio and voice, as opposed to websites and email, right? Audio and voice and video shorts are what is effective right now, and that's what you should be using. And that is how you execute your plan.
Yes, and executing the plan and having everything in place to be able to do that is key to be able to move forward. So our next point is your story. Your story is your brand. And you talked about brand before, that it's not about the website and the colors and all of that. Your brand becomes the know, like, and trust factor, the how people get to know you factor. And it's personal and professional. So your company and your personal life, they all tie into that. So if somebody looks at your social platforms and they see something on your personal life that isn't in congruence with what you're doing professionally, those don't align. So your brand is really across everything you're doing, especially in this digitally connected world. It's more important than ever. And it's, as I said, it's about fostering that familiarity both an affinity and a trust. And you got some thoughts on this, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's right. I think I mentioned earlier Jeff Bezos' quote, brand is what people say when you're not in the room. Gary Vaynerchuk says brand is built on social, and it is. That's where everybody is. That's where they're looking. It doesn't mean you don't put personal stuff up there. You do. Or you don't have to if you don't want to. But it should be congruent with your values and your message and your mission and those sorts of things. And social storytelling helps you create that meaningful connection, which is what you need to build your brand over time, Michelle.
Yes, and it does happen over time. It's not an immediate thing. And this is one of the things that I see a lot with business owners. They expect everything so quickly, and it doesn't happen that way. It really is building it over time, as you said. The next thing that is so key, the next point, so key, is your message and your offer. Now, you talked about the non-transactional approach. This ties into this as well. So your message and offer has to be tailored to your target market, your target audience, your ideal client, their specific needs and preferences. It needs to be clear. I always reference the Cheesecake Factory because it's so not clear. 10 whatever pages of a confused mind does not make a decision. So if you're not creating a clear and resonant message, you're not going to get the result you're looking for. You need to convey the value of your product and service succinctly, and that is essential.
Yep, that's right. One of the phrases I like, the art of selling without selling. There's probably a book named that. Someone can let me know in the comments of it. Bruce Lee had a similar quote. He said, the art of fighting without fighting. It was great. But great marketing makes selling effortless and ideally invisible. It's another quote. I don't know who said that. If you do, let me know in the comments. But yeah, marketing makes selling unnecessary. And that's where this tip of the spear thing that Ken Fudi talks about, you must nail your message and your offer. I can't stress that enough. By far, the most important thing you do in marketing is your message and your offer, which is why we spend an inordinate amount of money on that. And then you look at the production of how you're going to execute on that. But if you don't nail your message, people aren't going to hear it. If you don't nail your offer, people aren't going to buy it. And again, it's an iterative process. So this transactional, there's your funnel, ta-da, goodbye, doesn't work. Okay, it's an iterative process over time, which you continue to refine to maximize profitability. And you can only do that over time and with feedback from the market. So yeah, it's staggeringly important, message and offer, message and offer.
Yes, I love that, Martin. Absolutely. And the next thing that is maybe almost as important as message and offer is your content creation. As we've talked about it before, how a lot of business owners think that, oh, I can just hand off my content, my social media stuff to somebody else and I'm good. And it's not that. It's showcasing your expertise and leadership through your content and being able to utilize various articles, forms of content for your audience, then sharing your valuable insights and attracting the opportunities and the partnerships. And you are the one that has to do that creation.
That's right, Michelle. We've got 10 points here, and this one's a number 9. That's deliberate. Because before you pick up a single video editor or a camera, you need to do all of those other things we just talked about. And then you execute with them with content. And the best content is organically flowing naturally from the experiences in the moment. You're out at some event and you find this unique or interesting person to talk to. So you do a picture with them, or you do a little short video and you talk to them. It's this organic process that is messy. You're walking down the street, you're in the middle of an elevator, and you have come up with an idea for something. Oh, there's something you saw. This process is not at your desk. It's not, all right, I'm going to create content. Yeah, sure, there's some of that, and you can plan to do content. And there's different types of content. I talk about that sort of the 80-20 rule on that. And that is, at the beginning, maybe 80% of it is that filler content that Michelle just talked about, where you've got somebody doing it for you, and it's, Gary Vaynerchuk always, berates the people that put Happy Tuesday. Yeah, that's pretty useless content, okay? So it's not really going to do much for you. But you have to find a way to infuse your words, your talking points, your vision into the content without you actually having to do that. That's not easy to do. That's exactly what we do, but that's not easy to do. And in fact, most people, they either outsource it all or they have a team of people that's expensive to do it. But you really want to be able to do both of those things. And best marketers don't just organize events, they curate stories so that you can capture content. They make opportunities to create content. I'm going to go out to this thing or this event or this park or whatever it might be and come up with content. And once you start doing that, it's like lifting weights. You get used to thinking in that way. How can I turn that into content? Well, that's a good opportunity to make content. And again, if you're a business person, you need to be doing this. And there's no, oh, I don't really like doing that. You have to do that if you want to stay in business. There's no equivocation on that. Gary Vaynerchuk still does all of his videos. So is Tony Robbins. He's not got somebody else doing them. Now, after he's done the video, he has a team of people that does all the work. But you have to be the voice of the brand if you're going to make money. The kind of social media you can buy that you don't have to do anything isn't going to generate much money. It might generate leads, but then you're spending all of your time trying to close leads. If you want content that automates sales, then it has to be you, it has to be organic, it has to be of value.
That's so true, Martin. And that ties into our 10th point, which is the platforms for those content. Now, various digital platforms will continue to shape the future of work, right? You need to strategically use, whether it's social media, website, landing page, whatever that is, you need to strategically use it to your advantage for your content. And each platform serves as a unique purpose in reaching and engaging your audience.
That's right.
Now, Martin,
yeah, there's no such thing as one size fits all when it comes to social media. And people will say, oh, TikTok's not for me, or I don't do stuff on Facebook. Again, if you're a consumer, you can hate all you want on Facebook. The media certainly helps you do that. But if you're in business, you can't afford to do that. It is the tool. If you're an older generation, the yellow pages one is the thing. If you're in real estate, you have to be in the yellow pages. Or if you're in cleaning or retail. Well, now it's even more important to be on these platforms. Facebook has an older demographic, but it also has young people. It has 2 billion people. So it's got the people you want. TikTok has the people you want. It also has 1 billion plus people on it. So these platforms, you need to look at them specifically, but you need to be on all of them. And you need to have a message that's more unique to each one of them based on that target audience, based on that tip of the spear strategy we talked about earlier. And you need to speak to those specific audiences every time.
Yes, every time. And that's our 10th point, and so key, Martin. And we're going to continue to share and talk about this type of thing. We're going to be doing a masterclass in September, and we'll invite you to come and join us for that masterclass and really delve into some of these areas more so as it relates to your specific business. We're going to be adding a form to the comments so that you'll be able to put your name and information and get on our wait list for that masterclass, but we'll keep you posted on that. So, Martin, this has been great today. Lots of great tips, good conversation. And I'm looking forward to doing these Cohesion Connect conversations as we introduce this.
Yeah, so
Did you like
Samurai has a solution for this. So we've talked about the things you have to do, and we've talked about the steps that you have to take. And you have to have a production team. You have to have video editors and that kind of thing. But here's the challenge. You need somebody that's going to sit at the top and coordinate all those things, the logistics of it. And so that's what Digital Samurai does. We act as the orchestra leader for your business, and we talk to the message guy and the production guy, and we manage all that so you have a single point of contact. When you're looking at services that you want to use, if you don't know the questions to ask, and if you don't know the answers to all those 10 things we just talked about, then you need to find somebody that does or learn it yourself. Or you could hire Digital Samurai. But that's exactly what we do. We integrate all of those things. And we do it by looking at these 3 core areas: technology, intelligence, and production. We start by fixing the technology chaos stuff that we talked about before, which makes your interactions with your team and us frictionless. So then you're talking about what the graphic should look like, not how to find the graphic. Right? I'm sure you guys have all had those issues when you're doing outsourcing. In fact, it's said that 50% of people that do outsourcing on the platforms that are out there they have a negative first experience because there's so much back and forth and they don't really get what they want. And that is often the case. The production process should be invisible, and it can be if you fix the technology part. Now, we also create bespoke solutions that are unique to each client. We spend a lot of time, Michelle, looking at the client. How do you learn? How do you consume information? If you don't like reading, we're not going to send you a whole bunch of manuals. We don't do that anyway because we teach to the problem. But it really is important to take a very deep dive into what kind of personality are you. A quick start? Do you like to jump right into things? Or do you like to have a lot of details and information like I do before you start? These things are key to how we want to work with you and how you want to work. And most importantly, how do you create? What is your process for creation, right? Mine is very dynamic. I do karate moves and I think that way. So I think when I'm in that kind of process. But maybe you have a different method. And so looking at how you create, how you send us information. Maybe you just want to do videos and you don't want to do audio, or the other way around. So bespoke solutions look at how you learn, how you create, and that stuff is very, very important. The next thing is technology, or is intelligence. And that is what to do. Okay, so you need a video, you need a website. But what goes on that video? What goes on that website? We tell you those things, and we look at what is best for you based on your objective. And so again, having somebody that can oversee all of those things is really, really important. What is your content strategy? What do you need a sales funnel? Do you need a video? Do you need a website? Maybe you need a landing page instead. And so looking at that is really key. And after we've looked at the technology and the intelligence, only then do we go to production. And then we create organic, original videos from your stuff. But because of our seamless integration and our frictionless systems, you can just say what you want. Do a video, make a video out of this Zoom meeting, chop it up and do that, right? You don't have to do anything. You just say what you want. And we only teach you what you need to know when you need to know it. So there's not a whole bunch of manuals to learn. We're not going to teach you, again, as I said, how to use Canva. We're going to use Canva to do the thing that you need. And so we want to leverage this process, and you want to do what you're best at, and we want you doing that most of the time. And so we can use conversational production. You just say what you need. And we call that Client Concierge Service Bot, Michelle. It's really powerful. It's like Captain Picard. I'm a Trekkie fan. So Captain Picard just tells the computer what he wants, right? That's the same thing here. You just tell us what you want. Why? Because we have all of your structure set up. We've freed out all of these other things. We've solved the technology issues. So you can just say, do this video, and it gets done. That is very, very powerful. And that's one of the biggest differentiators that we have. Client Concierge Service Bot. And then we have a team in Africa that does the work. So it's a lower price point. You save up to 30% because of that alone. And they're highly trained. So again, you can just tell us what you want. You don't have to interact with the outsourcers at all. We leverage all of these advantages to give the client a strategic and tactical advantage. If you can spend all of your time on your message and creating value and creating content that sends people to your sales funnel, rather than figuring out how to create a sales funnel or what you should say or your messaging or all those other stuff. If you can do that, you have a strategic and tactical advantage. And that's just precisely what we do. So we have this team replacement. So instead of paying $50,000 a month for 5 or 6 people, you can do it for the cost of one social media manager, which is about $10,000 a month. So our programs are based on this end-to-end orchestra leader type of process where we are like the nervous system for your business. And that approach, I think, is going to be the dominant approach going forward because of the democratization of technology, because of the AI driving the cost of production to zero. Companies that are successful will focus on revenue stream and revenue share models rather than this transactional model. And so that's what we do. So Michelle, if they're interested in that, how can they get a hold of us?
Well, yeah, I mean, Martin, that's so key. So Digital Samurai has redefined outsourcing using your 3 core pillars: technology, intelligence, and production. So once you help them fix that technology chaos, then you're giving them curated bespoke solutions for their business under those 3 pillars. Wow. And at a fraction of the cost. I love it. I love it.
That's right.
It's
And
excellent. So
I should mention, we also work with Cohesion. Cohesion's our front end intake for onboarding, because Michelle helps you with the fundamentals of business, the structure. So
absolutely
you
the
can talk to it
structure,
more. Yeah.
the
Yeah. Tell me a little
structure,
bit
the
about that,
setup.
Michelle. How do you work with us in that way?
Yeah, so it's the structure, the setup, it's looking at those processes and systems. As Martin likes to say, it's the not fun part. it's the work, but it is. But the way you do it, hopefully it's not as much work. But it's the key part to be able to move your business forward when you've got those processes, the systems in place, that structure, and we identify what's happening with your tech first before you even get over to Digital Samurai. So we help you with that, organizing your day, making sure you're working on the priorities, seeing what you can delegate, and what is your IP? What makes you money while you sleep? Because that is key to be able to then look at that revenue share piece that Martin talked about. So we
Yeah,
look at
Michelle.
setting up
One of the things I like that Cohesion does that I think is most important is their 5 pillars of productivity, right? There's things to look at, the 5 things that you have to do in order to make your business successful. Moving to the cloud, data management, business communications. What's the fourth one, Michelle? I always forget the fourth one. Privacy and security, right?
Thank you.
And digital agility. Those things are
Yes.
fundamental to every business, no matter the size. And Cohesion starts with those so that when they come to us, they've already got those things in place. And I think that's really important to do. I mean, those 5 things, again, you really want to make sure that you're doing those, because that gives you the maximum flexibility. Moving to the cloud, for instance, private security is obviously super important. All of these things are important in building a business, and there are best practices around all of them that Cohesion teaches you. So yay, Cohesion.
Thank you, Martin. Yes, I appreciate you mentioning those 5 pillars of productivity. Absolutely. And as we said before, we're going to do some of this as a masterclass so that you're going to be able to dive in deeper with Digital Samurai and with Cohesion, and being able to do some of these things for your business, and really see how that can make a difference. So we will be putting a Google form in the comments, and we'll start doing that with each of our lives as well. So you can add your name to our wait list and be ready when we're going to be doing the masterclass in September. So Martin, this has been amazing, great conversation. I love it, and I think this new format once a month is going to work, where we're just talking about something very key to our audience. So we'll
Yeah, this
continue
is really
sharing
nice.
our journey.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. This is for me. This is really, really important, because I'm always talking to people about this shift and this organic way of working rather than the transactional way people think. I'm really passionate about that, because ultimately everyone's going to be doing it that way because of the reasons we've outlined here. So yeah, thanks, Michelle.
Excellent. And thank you, Martin. As always, you're a great guest. And, I got to love it because you're my twin brother. So, yes, wonderful. And we'll continue sharing our journey, guiding businesses to document their systems and processes, develop their IP so they can have an independent business. And as I like to say, step away from their desk so they can happy dance regularly. So, from the twins, Martin and Michelle Ricketts, thanks for joining us today. We'll see you soon. Right, Martin?
Thanks, everyone. And remember, do work you love, monetize your story, and design your future.